Good morning, Dawg Nation. I am Brandon Adams. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by Breda Pest Management. Glad you're with us. Jam-packed show, most of it fun. Davin Bellamy, you always love that. He is here today. I have the possibility of a big favorite in the SEC on upset alert on Saturday. At least an intuition I have about this. We'll give that to you in just a little bit. There is a youngish player on the Georgia roster that continues to earn buzz. I'll tell you why that is of note for Georgia fans today. And on the less fun part of it, but important enough, we're going to do it to kick off the show today. The first injury concern, obviously Brett Thorson we've had in our lives for a while. We know he's battling something, not something, going back to the end of last season, continues to battle that. But the first new injury concern has emerged. We're told that it's not serious. To be totally honest, Georgia fans have heard that before. So we'll do that off the top and then get into a busy show beyond that with plenty of fun and good news as we roll on. It is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Breda Pest Management. And it begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by Breda Pest Management. They handle bugs and critters.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
We have a jam-packed show. Most of the information we discuss today will be on the fun side of things. A lot of things to get you excited about Saturday and the upcoming season for Georgia. Do need to deal with something off the top prior to that. It's not quite as fun, but it is worth our time to do. And look, we keep it, I'm a pro wrestling fan, we keep it kind of kayfabe around here, and that we don't always reference the fact there are other people that talk about Georgia football beyond just DawgNation Daily, but you perhaps have seen news out there, reports that Georgia's defensive back, we believe he's the starter at the star position, that's the nickelback spot for Georgia, Joenel Aguero, has sustained some kind of injury at practice. To make a distinction that I've drawn for you before, did he suffer an injury or did he just sustain an injury? Well, I guess we don't quite know yet, but at the very least, he has sustained an injury, and hopefully this doesn't turn into him suffering an injury, something that lingers and lasts longer. But for now, we have substantial reporting that Aguero may have had some sort of injury at practice. I guess first reported Anthony Dasher. Perhaps you know who that is. Confirmed then by Rusty Manziel. Jordan Hill had some of this too. So good Georgia reporters have had information on this. And I guess the severity of this is still yet to be determined. Seems like it's a leg thing, a lower leg type deal. And I guess the latest, newest reporting is, well, maybe it's not all that serious. And as a Georgia fan, I certainly hope that it isn't. But on this show, we are the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldog fans. So I think like a fan, I talk like a fan. And this is one of those things where I have to reflect fan attitude and behavior just for a moment. And this is not anybody's fault, I don't think. It's just the way that it is. Some things in life aren't good or bad. They're just true. This is something I believe that's neither good nor bad. It's just true. Georgia fans have gotten a little frustrated in recent years because every injury, it would seem, I'm speaking probably overly general and broad, but directionally what I'm saying I believe is accurate. Every injury, it would seem, in recent years has been we don't think this is too serious, and it becomes the road to hell being paved with weekly updates from Kirby Smart saying, we think he's going to be fine, we're hopeful to get him back. Whoever the is in this case ends up being, we think he's going to be fine, we're hopeful to get him back, and this just goes on in perpetuity until we get old and gray. It just feels like there's a lot of that when it comes to injury concerns. So Aguero had an injury, lower leg, footish, something along those lines. The newest report is, we think it's not that big of a deal. We think it's probably okay. I have no reason to find fault in the reporting. Good reporters obviously providing this information. I'm just saying, we have a long list recently of injuries to Georgia players, especially if it involves something in the kind of the lower extremity area where it's, We don't think it's that serious. We think it's fine. We're hopeful to get him back. And then months of our life go by with essentially that same update being provided to us on a fairly continual basis. So we'll see. This is obviously a pretty big deal. Aguero is, I think, a guy that sounds like it had a pretty good fall camp. Nickelback is an important position for Georgia. It's not quite the same as a cornerback. You got to have a little bit of run-stopping chops to you. Got to have some beef to you. So it's not quite the same as just an additional cornerback on the field. We think Aguero is well suited for that. So this is not good news to the extent that it's true and the extent that it lingers more than just for this conversation that we're having right now. And yet, here's what we also know. This was going to be a thing that came up. You can't, none of us have lived well enough to earn the right to expect our team to go through a season without some sort of injury popping up at some point in time. Of course, that's going to be the case. Every team's dealing with it. You've already had offensive tackle Texas, running back Alabama, wide receiver Florida, non-injury concern for a Tennessee defensive back. You've already had personnel issues with most of the teams in the SEC that think of themselves as contenders. Georgia's not immune from that. Georgia won't be excluded from that. And the first of these that has popped up is apparently Joenel Aguero. Good reporting leading you to believe that's true. We're also told it's not that serious. And on behalf of all Georgia fans, I will say, well, we'll see about that because that has been the line of thought coming from Georgia before. So we'll see as it relates to Aguero on this. Now, that said, can I shift? And I'm sure the answer to this is yes. Can I shift to something far more fun and entertaining to discuss on a day like this? I thought we got something really, I think, remarkable is the wrong word. In the literal sense, it's remarkable that it's worth remarking on from a Georgia player yesterday, Lawson Luckie. I like Luckie a lot. I believe that Luckie's going to be a big part of this offense this season. I also think there's a long list of guys who could be that way, and so how you distribute those touches is going to be, I think, a curious thing. You got to be creative if you're Mike Bobo on that, but I think that Luckie's a part of this. I've always liked Luckie. But I've grown to like him, I think, even more. Key leader, I think a pretty viable playmaker. This is just one of those guys who you're just really glad to have on your roster. Full stop, no equivocation. You're just really glad to have a Lawson Luckie on your roster. And this is a short clip. It's maybe more interesting to me than it is to you. But yesterday, Luckie was asked what he wanted to see from his offense, what he was ready for his offense to put on display for all of us to see. It's pretty short. It's not super long, but I thought it was kind of compelling for reasons I'll explain. First, here is Lawson Luckie on what he hopes people see from the Georgia offense.
I'm excited to see us run the ball. We've put in so much effort to getting better in the run game, and I'm excited to be able to see an opportunity for that to come to fruition.
There are two reasons why I think this is interesting. Reason number one is this. Luckie plays the tight end position. We live in a day and age, and this is not unfounded for most of these guys, in which most tight ends now think of themselves as very big receivers. There are guys, Ethan Barbour, for instance. I think he knows he's a tight end at Georgia, but for a nationally ranked Milton team a year ago, Barbour almost exclusively played wide receiver. He was their ex-receiver. They had another tight end who was going to the SEC, so they used Barbour almost exclusively as a receiver. Caden Prothro, probably a tight end at Georgia, used right now in high school almost exclusively as a receiver. We live in a day and age in which a lot of tight ends think of themselves as just big-bodied receivers. Brock Bowers is the ultimate example of this, although Bowers did some of the dirty work that tight ends are required to do. But all tight ends now would like to be thought of in the Brock Bowers mold. Who wouldn't want to be when you see how productive and successful he was at Georgia, is in the NFL. Of course, that's a story that's currently writing itself. So for tight ends who we probably think of themselves as, I'm no different than any other pass catcher, I just happen to have a bigger body, you would imagine that the part of their job that includes being attached to the line of scrimmage, the extra blocker on a running play, that's the less attractive part of being a tight end. You would imagine that. That's what your intuition would suggest. And yet here is Lawson Luckie in what I think of as a pretty selfless gesture saying, here's what I want to see from the offense. I want to see how well we're going to run the ball. I think that's kind of nice, right? I think there's something commendable about that. That for someone like Luckie who could say, you won't believe how deep our tight ends are, and you won't believe what we're going to do. I can't wait to have the ball in my hand. Now, most Georgia players don't say that kind of thing in the press conference. I understand that. But still, tight ends play a very pivotal role in the running game, and it's the less glamorous part of the job of a tight end. So for Luckie to say, I'm ready to do that, I'm ready to go out on Saturday to do some run blocking, I think that's kind of commendable. I think it's kind of nice. The second thing that I really like about this is it just reinforces something we've heard over and over again. Leaders are repeaters. And Georgia's key leaders, including the head man himself, Kirby Smart, have emphasized until literally they are blue in the face that they want to be better at running the ball this year than they were last year. Georgia was outside the top 100. Hard to imagine Georgia be outside the top 100 in any category, especially for RBU when it comes to rushing yards per game, but that is what Georgia was. Georgia, to a man, coaches, players, everybody in between says, we don't want that to be true anymore. And I think that's something that certainly catches your attention when you hear that stated as frequently as it has been stated by Georgia here this offseason, including Lawson Luckie right there. How much can Georgia upgrade its performance? I honestly don't know. As I've insinuated a few times, I think the pecking order for Georgia running backs is still a little tricky to figure out. And where Georgia gets the hard yards between the tackle, as Mike Bobo has described them, the dirty yards that are a part of making third down more manageable, I think some of that's still up in the air. But when Lawson Luckie repeats what everyone else connected to the Georgia offense has said, we want to be better at running the ball, I think you have to take seriously the charge that Georgia has given itself to do just that. This is a real thing that Georgia is in pursuit of. And from that standpoint, Luckie saying that I find interesting. Now, speaking of that, it also brings me to something that Kirby Smart said yesterday, because in the discussion of what is your hierarchy at running back, who are the guys that are going to play, you got a long list of guys that it could be. We would all assume that Nate Frazier's at the top of that with good reason. There are other running backs that'll be in the mix here for Georgia. And as that continues to play out in our mind ahead of actually seeing this on Saturday, I think we have enough information now to confirm what has been an emerging rumor around the Georgia program. And look, we have fun with rumors. I love when I feel okay about bringing, because we've been given a big platform. We need to be a good steward of our big platform. We can't just run with every little thing we hear. That's dangerous. We try to be careful about some of that kind of stuff. But we also like to have fun with the things that we feel like we know enough to at least run with a bit. And one of the things we feel like we can run with a little right now is the notion that sounds like Dwight Phillips is going to play for Georgia, that Georgia wants to run the ball better. It's trying to figure out who the backs are that give it a chance to do that. I think we have seen and heard enough now to say the guy they call Peanut, which is a great nickname, and they seemingly all call him Peanut. The guy they call Peanut is going to be a part of it for Georgia here this year. In fact, just last night, Dwight Peanut Phillips became a topic of conversation for Kirby Smart again. And I want you to listen to this carefully because, look, I thought the Monday press conference, we didn't get anything specific from Kirby Smart. It was all generalities and it was, whatever. But this is a lot more specific about specifically what they see from Dwight Phillips. And the words that Smart uses here, part of the reason why I think that Phillips is going to play more this season. This is Kirby from just last night. Take a listen to this.
I think he's trying to become a complete back. He's very unique because I think people would think that he is a wide receiver back because of his speed, but that's not really what he is. He's one of the best vision backs we have. He runs bigger than his size indicates. He's explosive in and out of holes. I think when you look at backs, one of the first things you look at is how fast can they get in and out of holes, because holes tend to close really fast in this league especially. So he does that well. He's still developing toughness and His ability to pass protect has become better, and he's got to continue to work on that. But he'll tell you every day he's a work in progress, but there's nobody more fun to work with. He's very humble, and he's very fun to be around, and he's gotten a lot better since he got here.
So I like baseball. There's a phrase in baseball you sometimes hear: a good pitcher doesn't just pitch to contact. He needs to be able to miss bats. In other words, throw the kind of pitches that create swings and misses. You need to be able to miss bats. I think that Georgia is looking for something like that with its running backs. I think it wants its running backs to miss tackles, to avoid tacklers. If you're, a guy that's just going to run into a would-be tackler and hope you run him over, I don't know how much that works for what Georgia wants to do offensively right now. I think it wants guys that can run past, run around, wiggle away from, almost the type of back that would succeed in a two-hand touch flag football situation of, I'm not going to let you get your hands on me. I'm going to make you miss. And we would be led to believe that Dwight Phillips is obviously a guy with the sort of speed that allows that to happen. But in addition to that, and this is what matters, is that Phillips is not just the classic, in the NFL, I guess we call them scat backs, the third down, smallish player who, when he comes into the game, it's almost a tip-off of what the play call is going to be. I think that Kirby certainly wants to and is suggesting that it might be on its way to becoming true, that Phillips is actually more than that he may be a little beefier, that he may be able to handle contact a bit better. And the other day, Kirby Smart said they want complete running backs. They want backs that can show some speed and some elusiveness and create some stuff on the outside edge, but they want the same back to be able to also do the dirty work, the nasty business in the middle of the field too. And so it sounds like that's what they're training Phillips to be able to do. And a lot of our preseason predictions, especially when we bet the over on production for seemingly every player in the Georgia offense, a lot of that just doesn't come true. It never has. Total confession, total honesty. I'm talking about all of us who are fans, generally more optimistic across the board. We probably should be. That's just the nature of fan conversation. I think this one's worth a second look, though. I think there's a chance that Dwight Phillips is a part of this Georgia offense. I don't think he's Georgia's leading rusher. I'm assuming that's still Nate Frazier. I don't think that Phillips necessarily even gets the second most carries. I think that's up for grabs. Could he get the third most carries? Maybe. I'm not closed off to that possibility. This is a relatively new consideration for me, but as we get close to the season, I start to think this might be real. My name is Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by Breda Pest Management. So happy that you're with us live on video, 10 a.m., or on demand after that. Radio, Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref. We're on there every day. I also join them in the morning show every Wednesday morning. What a great conversation this morning, getting ready for the big season opener. That's always a lot of fun. And, of course, podcast, Apple, Spotify, worldfamousdawgnation.com, all the places you find podcasts. You can find our show, and I'm really glad that you do. Thankful for all of that. Also, big thanks to our friends at Breda Pest Management who make it all possible today. Quick story from me. So many of you know I'm a big fan of Breda Pest Management. You also may know this. About a year ago, we moved. And when you move, we were in a newly constructed home. So when you move in, new construction, you oftentimes have the pest control provider that the builder used. And I don't have anything against them or anything like that, but it wasn't selected by me. It was the builder that just had a relationship. And for the first year, you're serviced by that particular pest control provider, in some cases in a new construction situation. But for me, now that our year was over with, and now that it was time for me to have my say in who my pest control provider was going to be, of course I was choosing Breda Pest Management. The same thing I'm encouraging you to do. Of course I do that myself. And reached out this week and called, and I got to tell you, and my wife can say this too, that I'm talking about immediate response. Hey, need you guys to come out. We need termite protection. We need the pest control. We kind of need the whole 9 yards. Hopefully no flying squirrels or anything like that right now. But bugs, gosh knows, we got all kinds of bugs. Termite protection, you have to have that. So we reached out. When I tell you the immediate response, friendly folks, they're already coming out. I think they may be even coming today. My wife, typically handles that. But I mean, it's just that quick, that response, the friendly level of service that we've gotten from Breda Pest Management. And I would say that for me, it's personally gratifying. You want good people helping you take care of your home. That's, of course, important. But what I'm doing now, telling you about one of our sponsors, is what I do for a living. And if I do it well, I want to have the peace of mind of knowing, listen, y'all are my audience. In many ways, I feel like I work for you. I mean, I have a greater sense of loyalty to my audience than anybody else. I can promise you that. And I don't want to steer you wrong. I don't want to tell you something that I can't trust to be true. And when it comes to Breda Pest Management, based on my personal interaction, I can trust this is going to be true. They'll also put more money back in your pocket just for making the decision. You're working with a company that's not as friendly, not as relatable, not as easy to work with. They're also probably more expensive too, which is kind of the double no. You don't want either of those things. So make the switch, put more money back in your pocket for making that switch online, BredaPest.com. That is BREDA, BredaPest.com for more on that. We love having Breda Pest Management as a part of DawgNation Daily. All right, a couple of programming notes here right now. First of all, DawgNation Invasion is now sold out. We knew it would happen, been warning you. We are now sold out for DawgNation Invasion, but our friends at Kroger are still giving you your chance to win your way onto the DawgNation Invasion. So I want you to register for your chance to win right there. It's super easy. If you go to DawgNation.com/contest, you can just click in, register for your chance to win, be a part of that. The only way you can get into DawgNation Invasion for now is via our contest, courtesy of Kroger, if you win. So I think it's a cool thing that Kroger's going to provide this opportunity. So check out DawgNation.com/contest. This is sort of a last chance to win your way onto the DawgNation Invasion for the tailgate on the boat that day before the Georgia-Tennessee game. It's going to be an incredible tailgate experience. Kroger wants you and a guest to have your chance to win your way on, so they will do that for you. DawgNation.com/contest. Kroger giving away a pair of tickets to our DawgNation Invasion in Knoxville coming up. Hope that you'll register for your chance to win. Let me also remind you that tomorrow is an event we've been telling you about with our friends, the Red and Black. You know the Red and Black, the historic, renowned student newspaper for the University of Georgia. Some of the best sports journalists and all kinds of journalists, but we care about sports journalists you've ever known got their start connected to the Red and Black. So we're going to celebrate them tomorrow with a big season kickoff event they are hosting. I'm very humbled to have the chance to moderate this distinguished panel, which includes David Pollack, one of your all-time favorites, Mark Schlabach from ESPN, Mr. College Football Tony Barnhart. All of this goes down at Authentic Brewing. I believe tickets are still available here, so we'll see you tomorrow night. It starts at 7:30 p.m. in Athens at Authentic Brewing. I'm going to give you the website one more time. This is what you call a bit.ly link. It's the way you take a longer link and you shorten it down. You see it on social media a lot. I'm saying it out loud. Type exactly what I'm saying here. bit.ly/DawgNation. That's bit.ly/DawgNation. That'll take you to the longer link, which is the Red and Black ticketing site to get your tickets for the event. In this particular case, the reason why it's a ticketed event is because all the proceeds benefit the Red and Black. This is something that I'm doing, obviously, as a way of showing support to a news organization that I think is training up a great generation of sports writers and sports media folks coming up here. So we want to show some support for them. That's why Tony, David, and Mark are involved. And we're helping raise some money for them. Ticket proceeds go for the Red and Black. So we're doing this with them and for them tomorrow at Authentic Brewing. So bit.ly/DawgNation for more on that. A lot going on around DawgNation, all of it fun. And by the way, can't wait to see you in Athens on Saturday, the big game day. We'll be telling you more about that in the days to come too. For now, let's get ready to go around the doghouse. And it's presented today by our friends at Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, there is something that has happened around DawgNation, not our site, but DawgNation more broadly speaking, over the last 24 hours or so that's gotten a pretty interesting reaction. And that is there's a brand new commercial. Think of it like a TV commercial. I'm guessing it doesn't air on local television. I'm guessing it's mostly just for social platforms, Instagram, X, maybe Facebook, things like that. It is Gunner Stockton for the apparel maker Onward Reserve. Onward Reserve has had NIL relationships with a lot of Georgia players in the past, and Stockton is the latest on social media. You may have seen this. It's a cool ad because it's Stockton in the old pickup he was once famous for driving a year or so ago. I don't believe that's his regular pickup anymore, I don't think. But that is what he is seen driving in this ad. Stockton's also well known for having a collection of cattle, and that's a part of this. All of this very authentic and true to Stockton. That's what the ad is essentially about. On social media, Onward Reserve says, we're proud to partner with some of the most talented student athletes in the country. The highlight of this effort is getting to know them, who they are off the field and who they are as people. Onward Reserve writes that Gunner Stockton is exactly the type of person we strive to align with. Quarterback run at the top rank of a top-ranked program. More importantly, he's humble, genuine. He appreciates the people who helped him get to where he is today. That is what Onward Reserve says, and that's basically the theme of this video that you may have seen on your social feeds. So what some people have said to me is, are we sure that Gunner Stockton ought to be doing a commercial like this? And to be frank, the way it was said to me was, does this come off as a little Carson Beck-ish to see Stockton in a commercial before the season even takes place? Is this presumptuous for him to be doing that? And I have to say, of course, different people are going to have different opinions. I have to say, from my vantage point, I don't see one problem with this whatsoever. And for me, it's really kind of for two pretty big reasons. Reason number one is this ad really does seem to be about who Stockton is. This is not putting on airs of, well, now that I'm a quarterback, I'm this Hollywood guy, and I'm going to drive these fancy cars, the likes of which that movie stars typically drive, and I'm going to do all of this stuff that's maybe far different from the way that I was raised. If anything, this is Stockton being celebrated for being just like he was when he was raised. Old pickup truck, raising cattle, essentially looking and dressing the way that he probably always has. This isn't, I'm a brand new guy because of the money I'm making. This is, I'm making money, but I'm still the same guy I always was. In fact, I'm literally driving the same pickup I've always driven. So the story feels better than maybe some of the other stories that have occasionally been told around Georgia football. Fair or not, this story, to the extent that it's authentic, we believe that it is, just feels like a better story. It just does. And here's the other thing, and this is more of a practical reality. I think that Georgia fans need to be comfortable with seeing their quarterback in commercials. I'm going to talk to Davin Bellamy about this a little bit later on, what the perception in the locker room would be about this. But I think quarterbacks in commercials is something that fans need to be making peace with and need to be okay with. And there's more value for the commercial ad to come out right before the season begins, as opposed to while the season's taking place, once we're sure the guy's really a good quarterback. There's just more value for the sponsor in having the commercial come out right now, because interest in the football season is really, really high right as it's kicking off. It's a pretty good time to drop the ad. The practical reality is, in a world in which you have traditional NIL and revenue sharing payments, the more you can pay your quarterback through what we think of as traditional NIL, using your name, image, and likeness for commercial endorsements, and getting that NIL deal accepted by, to the extent that it has any teeth, this Deloitte-led clearinghouse with the NCAA, the more you can successfully do that, the more your revenue sharing money can go to your players who are really important for your overall success, but less marketable to commercial endorsers. So if you want to maximize the financial potential of your roster, you need your quarterback in some TV commercials. And that's a completely different landscape for what college football used to be, but you need it no different. And I think that Gunner Stockton has gone about his business here pretty similar to maybe how Arch Manning has gone about his with Texas. Arch is more nationally known, but he certainly hasn't cultivated any of that fame. Gunner Stockton's really well known in our state and maybe our region, but also he's not doing a lot to seek out that fame and cultivate that fame. He's certainly not portraying himself as a celebrity. He just plays a position in which there's going to be an inherent degree of attention. Cashing in on that, I don't think is a problem. And the more that the quarterback for Georgia, whoever it is able to do that, the more money you have to take care of the other players in your roster. And that definitely will be a very good thing. That is Around the Doghouse, presented today by our friends at Georgia Farm Bureau. Speaking of commercial endorsers, I'll do one here right now because I love Georgia Farm Bureau, because Georgia Farm Bureau supports a lot of folks like the man we just mentioned, folks who have cattle. And so many of I think it's so interesting when you drive, especially where I live. I live in a very rural area. There are lots of cow pastures. You see lots of cattle. And what you realize is a lot of what makes up, cattle in our state, the great, cattleman tradition in our state, it's not necessarily the giant factory farms, anything like that. It's the folks who have, few acres, few cows to go on that. And it's beautiful to see. It's a big part of what puts food on the plate for folks in our state, around the world, right here in Georgia. And for a long time, Georgia Farm Bureau has lived to serve those folks. But the same level of service it provides them, it wants to provide you when it comes to your insurance needs. Legally, you have to have auto insurance. You need home insurance because of the great damage that can happen out of nowhere to your home. You probably need life insurance too. But who do you trust for these things? Well, my suggestion would be to trust the friendly folks from Georgia Farm Bureau. People who are, and we say it all the time, they're always the home team because they live in communities in Georgia just like the one that you live in. And so if you want to reach out and make a call and have a nice person answer on the other side, a claims adjuster that understands where you're coming from in your life, well, that's what our folks at Georgia Farm Bureau are going to do for you. So give them a call, 877-404-1050. That's 877-404-1050. You can also find them online, gfbinsurance.com. That is gfbinsurance.com. Georgia Farm Bureau is always the home team. All right, before we're done today, it is the great former Georgia linebacker Davin Bellamy. Always a fun conversation. We'll get to that. Also, a quarterback battle a long way from here has resolved itself in a way that might be notable for Georgia fans. We'll tell you about why that is. But for now, Dawgs getting ready for the season opener. Let's get you ready for all of that. Let's talk to Mike Griffith here today on DawgNation Daily, presented by Breda Pest Management.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
Did not get our chance to speak to Mike Griffith last week. Had a great conversation with Scott Cochran. Told I think a really inspiring and important story. But glad to have Mike back on the show today, getting ready for the season opener on Saturday. Mike, we like to do fun things here. We like good news around here. Everything sort of moves a lot smoother when it's happy topics. We did have to address a not quite so happy topic off the beginning of the show. Fairly substantial reporting that Joenel Aguero is dealing with some sort of injury. There's reporting that's maybe not too serious. On behalf of Georgia fans, I'll say, well, we'll see. We'll see, because we've been told now for a long time, a lot of these injuries, especially if it relates to some sort of lower extremity, so-and-so's fine. We're hopeful to get him back, and that ends up being the rest of our life with that descriptor there. So what do you think about reports right now that a guy that we think had a pretty good fall camp for Georgia and set up for a lot of success this season, at least for now, Jonel Aguero apparently dealing with injury?
Yeah, I asked Kirby Smart about injuries last night, and he sidestepped that question. I guess now we know why. That would hurt a little bit, and maybe not so much for this game, but certainly if this is anything that leaks into the season, obviously Georgia's pretty stacked in the secondary, and they've got a lot of talented options. I suppose that's the good news, BA, is that Kirby Smart has recruited well there.
Yeah, I think that star is a tricky thing. I think that. You can't just slide a cornerback over there and obviously this is all speculative on the basis of how hurt Aguero might be, but just hypothetically speaking, you can't necessarily slide a corner over there because you're going to be punished in the run game for that. And it's obviously got to be the kind of safety type body that has pass coverage ability. We believe that Aguero has that. So in a roundabout way, I don't wish an injury on any position, but if it's cornerback, well, you feel like you've got a little more depth there, maybe. True safety, maybe a little bit more depth there too. I think the nickel position in particular is one where I don't know how much I feel like I know about the backup situation at that spot compared to, whether it's Adrian Maddox or Corey Thomas, maybe okay. Whether it's Daniel Harris or Ellis Robinson with DeMello Jones lurking, yeah, maybe okay. Star is one of those things where whoever your prime backup is, I don't know if I know quite as much about that right now.
I thought it was interesting that we heard Chris Cole talk about taking some reps there, and you just kind of wonder, you're assuming that they're going to play a 5 defensive back package with that star. I mean, maybe they play more of a conventional 4-3 and just play 4 defensive backs with 2 corners and 2 safeties, and the star is not on the field. I think that having those sort of linebackers, though, with that type of speed and having that depth at the safety position, I think really makes a difference here. And this is why Kirby cross-trains these guys into different positions as well, I would add.
Well, I'd also point out that we've seen outside linebacker play the true star before. Lorenzo Carter played that a good bit. I think there have been others, although my memory starts to fade after a while, but I know Lorenzo Carter did it a lot. So putting the outside linebacker at the true star position is something that Georgia's done. And gosh, I mean, I think we're led to believe that Chris Cole may play about all 11 positions before the season's done. I mean, I kid when I say that, but he's going to be a very busy man in a lot of different roles, it certainly sounds like.
Well, he's a guy that can do a lot of different things. I mean, to me, he's the most exciting player on defense. Now, they got a lot of talented guys on defense. I'm not saying that he's necessarily the best, although ultimately I think he will be the best. I think this guy is a top 5 future draft pick. I mean, with the length, the speed, the size, the hitting ability, the guy's ability to study film. I mean, I guess I was talking to Jeff Sintel this morning, BA, and he tells me that he never got a B or a C or a D in high school. This was a straight A student. So, I mean, this guy really checks all the boxes and gives you this kind of versatility. I mean, again, on the Joenel thing, I think as long as he's back by Tennessee, no harm, no foul, and it gives some other guys opportunities to get some reps. But to your point on Chris Cole, what an exciting player. Can't wait to see him play Saturday against Marshall.
So I have said for the Georgia Marshall game, Marshall, who I believe may be the worst team in FBS this year, that I don't know what I can take away from the game beyond the one big thing that I want to see. The number I've thrown out is that Georgia's a 9.5-point favorite in the first quarter. Whether you gamble or not, people should be careful with any of that sort of thing, but whether you gamble or not, I think that's a pretty good measuring stick for what success looks like. I have said I want to see Georgia cover that first quarter number. And this is where Kirby, I thought, gave a good answer last night. We're going to do this more later on this week. The defense plays a part in this. That if you score your first drive, but then you let the opponent go on a 7 or 8 play drive, well, now you don't get the second full possession in the first quarter because the clock rules are different now. And when you watch the games closely, you just realize there are fewer possessions than there used to be that impact scoring and impact stats. The game is different than it was even 3 years ago because of that. So if you want to be 10-0 the first quarter, 14-0 the first quarter, which is by this metric what success would be, it's going to be score, stop, score. You got to get the opposing offense off the field too. And I don't care if Georgia wins 30-0 or 60-0. I want them 10-0 at least by the end of the first quarter. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, I wrote a story this morning, Kirby, talking about fast starts, and I didn't realize it, but Georgia was shut out in 6 first quarters last year and trailed at halftime of 7 games. And that's just amazingly, they still won the SEC. But you and I know that that's not a formula for success. So I'm going to be interested to see how fast they do start and to what extent the coaches control that is the play calling. How aggressive will the play calling be on offense? I know they want to run the football effectively. I get that. But will they take some shots early? Will they try to build an early lead? Because you and I know when you're playing with the lead, your defense can play more aggressive. And, with that extra DB being out, that kind of makes things interesting. So I'll be real curious to see how aggressive Georgia starts against Marshall with the play calling. I mean, we've heard about the players having fire, passion, and energy. Will the coaches show that with the aggression in their play calls?
Yeah, and people know the DawgNation YouTube page, see the full press conference. We'll obviously play some of these clips for you tomorrow. We didn't have time to get them in today's show. But Smart last night asked, why does the idea of a fast start fall on the offense more so than the defense? Well, for me, that's 2 reasons, Mike. A, the offense is working on a play script to begin the game in some form, some fashion. We talked to Jake Fromm about this, I think it was last week, about how scripted it actually is.
Yeah.
Jake gave us some insight on that, but the first reason why this sometimes falls in the offense is because they are working from a play script to begin the game. And the second thing is you're right. Last year it was a huge problem for Georgia, measurably shut out in the first quarter, certainly an example of that. But even in 2023, when Georgia was an elite offense by almost any metric, they still weren't very good at getting off to fast starts. 7 first-quarter points against UT Martin, no first-quarter points against Ball State, didn't score in the first quarter of both the first SEC games that year, slow start against UAB. That the beginning of the season featured tons of slow starts offensively too, even for an offense that was actually really good for the full season total. So the fast start is not, and the need for one, the absence of one, is not just immediate creation. This is a real issue that's plagued Georgia. And in the case of Alabama a year ago, both offensively and defensively, probably cost you the game.
Yeah, certainly against Alabama it did, although I'd put that as much on the defense. I mean,
Sure.
I feel like Arian
You're
Smith
right.
dropped that deep ball on the offensive first drive, and then he missed an audible call that turned into an interception there. But gosh, the Alabama offense and Kalen DeBoer really, you hate to say it, but they really out-schemed Kirby in that game. They had a great read on the Georgia defense. It's like they knew the playbook. I do think it's going to be interesting, though, how Kirby Smart turns Gunner loose. When I think about 2023, as I recall, it was Carson Beck's first year as a starter. And a lot of times Kirby Smart is conservative with new quarterback. A lot of coaches are, not just Kirby, a lot of coaches. And he knows he has a great defense and he knows he has great special teams. So he doesn't want to put a first-time starter into a position where they turn the ball over. And we know that early in Carson's career, he had some issues with that. I mean, UAB game comes to mind and the interception and whatnot. So I think a lot of it has to do with the newness of the quarterback, but with Gunner being a fourth-year quarterback and with all these offensive weapons, Brandon, I got to think that Kirby's going to be more aggressive with the offense. I mean, he sits in those meeting rooms with Mike Bobo. It's not like Mike Bobo shows up and calls whatever he wants. So a lot of this is what Kirby Smart wants to do, and how aggressive will he be with Gunner Stockton putting the ball downfield early?
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. Mike, can't wait to see you in Athens on Saturday. Great stuff here today. We'll also see you later on this week on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews, our first chance to make our picks of the week. That is back. That comes up on Friday. So busy times around Dawg Nation. You're a big part of it, Mike. Thanks for your conversation here today.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Have a good one.
You too.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Great guests coming up. We'll get to Davin Bellamy here in just a bit. Before that, let's go cruise around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean today. And, of course, we've been rolling through all the big things that DawgNation has going on in the near future. Don't forget, a few months from now, we'll also be back once again on Utopia of the Seas for the next DawgNation cruise, April of 2026, sailing out of Port Canaveral in Florida on April 20th of next year, going to Nassau in the Bahamas, Perfect Day Coco Cay, on board the newest Oasis-class ship, Utopia of the Seas. The DawgNation cruise is one of the most amazing events I've ever had the privilege of being a part of. I love sharing it with all of you, and I can't wait to do that again here this year. Jessica Slater can tell you all about it. Give her a call, 770-718-9147, 770-718-9147. You can also email her, jslater@dreamvacations.com. This is a special event. I'm proud to be a part of it. Every single year, it just becomes one of the great sources of memories for me, and I hope to be able to share all of that with you. The familiar faces that are with us every year, new folks are going to be there for the first time. What an experience it's going to be. Can't wait to see you on board Utopia of the Seas, DawgNation Cruise, April 20th through the 24th on Utopia of the Seas. Going to be a great time. All right, let me do a couple of stories here before I get Davin Bellamy coming up in a moment. So, saw where yesterday Tennessee coach Josh Heupel has signed a big contract, and we can leave the music up a little bit, a big contract extension there with the Vols. And, you know, right around the time this decade began, we saw a lot of new faces around the SEC. Heupel's first year at Tennessee in 2021. Some of those players have proven to have more staying power. Coaches have proven to have more staying power than others. I would say that Josh Heupel has proven to be a coach with some staying power. And this is where I think that Georgia fans sometimes get a bit of a misbegotten notion, because Georgia has kicked around Tennessee so much that Heupel is just as much of a punchline as any of the other rival coaches that Georgia faces. Whoever Auburn's employing at the given time, Billy Napier at Florida, on and on we go. But by comparison, Josh Heupel has succeeded far more than those other coaches have. Heupel, I do believe, will be sticking around Tennessee for quite some time to come. I think that he's just proven to be a winner. He made the college football playoff. He's beaten Alabama a couple of times. He has not made a dent in Georgia at all. We're glad of that. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a little something going for him here right now. And that contract extension, a reflection of that. This is a coach that in a kind of a topsy-turvy SEC where a lot of coaches may be on their way out in the next year, maybe the next year or two, we don't think Heupel's probably going anywhere anytime soon. He has become far more of a real football coach at Tennessee than he ever was before that. Can I give you an upset to consider for Saturday? Maybe not outright, maybe just kind of fun if you care about point spreads, things like that. As always, be careful. But we like to put ourselves out there. We like to give you something to think about. Keep your eye on University of Texas San Antonio, the UTSA Roadrunners, they are called, playing at Kyle Field, College Station, Texas. They are 24.5-point favorite, A&M is. Watch out for the Roadrunners here. I have a sneaking, I think the Texas San Antonio, one of the better group of 5 teams this year. On the other side of that, something to me feels a little bit off with Texas A&M right now. It's not Mike Elko. I think he's a good coach. A&M seems to have more draft capital on its roster than we're used to seeing them have. Analytics, betting market, a lot to seemingly like about A&M. Something seems off about the Aggies to me. I said during the offseason, this to me looks like the least happy fan base in the entire SEC. They are frustrated that Texas has come into the SEC, had success early, and then A&M finally got a chance to play them last year, played them in Kyle Field, didn't win the game. There's just not a lot of optimism around Texas A&M. And you kind of wonder if some of that creeps into the on-field product for the Aggies this year. I have my suspicions. Watch out for UTSA at least plus the 24.5 against Texas A&M on Saturday. If not, maybe even more than that. Just something to file away. We'll see if that turns out to be right. Do you remember what former 5-star quarterback in Georgia, Julian JuJu Lewis, once told our Jeff Sentell? Or I guess it's his dad that said this, that Lewis didn't think he could come to a place like Georgia or anywhere where he might not get a chance to play right away. That was something that Lewis felt like just wasn't good for his soul to sit on the bench. It didn't feel like it would be a good fit for him, a program that'd be the case. Well, guess what? Lewis instead went to Colorado. Colorado has named its starting quarterback for the upcoming season and is not Julian JuJu Lewis. It's Caden Salter. I think that folks who are close to the situation are maybe not super surprised by that. Both Lewis and Salter went to I should say Big 12 Media Days with Oregon the other day. Let me see if I can get something right. They went to Big 12 Media Days with Colorado, I mean to say. So both quarterbacks were obviously in it. Lewis is the more notable because he's the recent 5-star, but he was not the winner of this Colorado quarterback competition. So we'll see what that means. Interesting. Humility is a good thing, and sometimes it's nice to have it, and choosing it for yourself before it's forced upon you is usually a pretty good idea. So we'll see what's next for Lewis. Let me also just mention this real quick, and I don't want to keep Davin Bellamy waiting. There is a very interesting controversy in the Big Ten where Fox has hired, do you know Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports? They've hired him, most people believe, as a counterbalance to what Pat McAfee does on ESPN's College Game Day. Portnoy is supposed to be the version of that for the Big Noon Saturday show. Portnoy also makes no bones about the fact he's a big Michigan fan and a Michigan booster. He's even been willing to pony up millions of dollars to help them buy a quarterback. Well, apparently, allegedly, Ohio State wanted to ban Portnoy from the stadium on Saturday, the Horseshoe, for the game against Texas. Ohio State says they didn't do this. It was Fox's decision to keep him from there. Fox says Portnoy is not going to be traveling to any of the on-site venues this year. All of this feels like Ohio State getting its feelings hurt around a famous booster for their big rival wanting to be in their stadium. And this is just really weird. And it's an amazing contrast to the ESPN show Game Day, which is going to be there on Saturday. It's Lee Corso's final show, a very wholesome narrative, putting on the headgear for the last time, speaking to the prestige of the ESPN show that's been in our life for decades. This, on the other side, feels a lot more frantic, a lot more fly-by-night, and I don't know, kind of an interesting chapter in the Big Ten's history. I got more I could say about this. We may address this at some other time, because what Ohio State appears to have tried to do here, in my opinion, has clearly not worked. I have my reasons as to why it's not going to work for any program moving forward, but we'll have to save that for another time. For now, let's make that cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean, and let's get ready to say hello today to a guy that always does a great job with us. He's our Dave Portnoy, if you will. It is the former linebacker for the Georgia Bulldogs, Davin Bellamy, here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Breda Pest Management here today. Davin, appreciate you being here. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that you are just as excited for this upcoming season as we all are.
Brandon, like always, man, I'm glad to be here, and, go Dogs.
So earlier we talked about Gunner Stockton, new commercial comes out for him. It looks like a TV commercial. It's probably going to only air on social channels if I had to guess. It's a little bit different, certainly for college football, to have guys like this, in commercial endorsements. I think for some Georgia fans, it makes them a little nervous because it kind of reminds them of maybe previous storylines around Georgia quarterbacks and attention being put elsewhere. I said before, I have no problem with this. It feels like Stockton's true story, his authentic story, and so therefore seems to be relatively safe. Also, my assumption, and this is what I'm asking you, is that players in the locker room, for the most part, kind of make peace with stuff like that. They're not, pocket watching. They're not counting other guys' money necessarily, especially when it comes to, public just likes quarterbacks. Quarterbacks don't have their opportunities. Yeah. How do you think Georgia players respond to what appears to be a fairly sizable NIL deal and a big public platform now for a guy like Gunner Stockton? How do you think Georgia players feel about that?
Well, first, he's a starter team. He's the quarterback, so he has to do his things when he has to go kiss babies and shake hands. So he's going to get the big time, money. He is the quarterback, and the guys around him do, understand that. So, especially in this era, we're talking about all these guys are trying to get their pockets right through social media and through NIL. But he's the quarterback, and I'm pretty sure if they're giving him this money, he has to be, in front of the camera. But Gunner is just a guy he's already showed his teammates who he is, and they know he's not worried about the outside things. And I'm pretty sure it's toned down from the quarterback of last year when they're going to practice and a Lamborghini truck isn't parked in the quarterback spot. It's an old Ford, F-150. So they'll give him a break for doing, a commercial here and there.
And listen, the sense that I get is, and this doesn't prove anything, but it means something to me. The Georgia players seem to like Stockton. They seem to like Stetson Bennett, that there is a level of trust that's formed when you think your quarterback is in it with you, that he's in the trenches, he's in the weight room, that he's trying to be a football player like everybody else, and he's not living a life that's completely separate from mine. Once again, I'm speaking as if I'm a player. I'm clearly not. But how much value would you put into what appears to be the fact that the Georgia players just seem to like their guy right now?
No, I definitely agree. You have some QBs that they don't do, a lot of things, with the team. Some QBs lift, on their own. They're always doing, fundraisers that sometimes the whole team doesn't, have to go to. So I've been, luckily I haven't been in any rooms where the quarterback, acts like that. So when the quarterback is lifting, with the guys and he's just showing that he's a football player and just one of the guys, it just makes the team just rally, around him more because the quarterback is put on, a pedestal. And majority of QBs know that they're being put, on that pedestal. So when they decide, to humble themselves and be around the guys, it just makes them look like, just a defensive lineman, So the guys just rally around him because of how down to earth he is. And we know he's getting probably the most money, but like I say, he's driving a, humble car. And that speaks volumes, in the locker room also.
Look, humble yourself. Catchphrase got dropped by Davin right there.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah,
We've
yeah.
talked.
So, yeah, then
We've
you have quarterbacks. Sorry, you have quarterbacks like Baker, who I wasn't in the locker room with him, but when you're talking about a guy who is protected through the rules, and he does so many things that gives us bulletin board material. Some of the guys on his team are like, "Look, we got to play Georgia, and you're doing all this. You're protected by the rules, but you're giving these guys a little more to want to beat us." So, just that attitude sometimes doesn't resonate with the team.
All right, two things here. Thing number one is this. We have said this so many times that you are so far ahead of your time when it comes to the humble yourself. And had that same thing happen in more of a traditional NIL era, I just think you would have made bank off those T-shirts. I really do. And listen, we have a lot of young recruits that sometimes watch our show. I think this is a pretty important lesson to learn, is that, Davin, now a lot of recruits will come out and they'll be like, I got my own logo. And I would say to these young men, nobody cares about a logo. You need a catchphrase. If you want to sell gear, you don't need a logo. Nobody cares about that. You need a catchphrase. And if you've got a catchphrase, watch pro wrestling. The catchphrase is what's on the T-shirt. You had a catchphrase. And it's kind of pre-NIL. Printing T-shirts was harder back then than it is now.
Right.
It's a little bit of a trickier business then than it is now. For recruits who want to do the apparel game, don't worry about making some sort of logo. Nobody cares. Get a catchphrase. Davin, tell them, because when you had to humble yourself in 2017, that was the sort of catchphrase that was ready made for the T-shirts and everything else.
Right. I mean, the second thing is get you, a catchphrase. The first thing is to win. A lot of these guys are doing that now in high school when they have even done really nothing at the college level to the fan base who they want to surround them, so it's a little different now. Guys are already thinking they're that guy when they get, to campus. I wasn't trying to market myself when I was, a role player or not starting. I was trying to prepare myself to be the best that I can be when I got the chance to start, because I've watched Leonard Floyd and Jordan Jenkins and all those guys ball. I just couldn't wait to get my chance. So, as my time went forward and we started to win and I started to make plays, then you start to see a little bit more of the branding. But kind of like you said, a lot of these guys are doing it backwards now. You got to ball first, put in the work, do your time. Like I did my time, man. I think that's why a lot of the fans resonated with me so well. I was a 3-star recruit on some sites, and I came in and I sat behind 5 stars, and I even had 5 stars come in while I was there, fresh off of DUI, when Mark Richt told me I would never play here, and I think you should transfer because we have the #1 player coming in Lorenzo Carter. So my mindset was just, first just focus on trying to prove, Mark Richt wrong, and I can play here, and I am just as good as all these guys. And once I've done that, that gave me the confidence to be more boastful. But a lot of these guys are already, coming in with that little, just that pride and cockiness and already thinking about the money. So that's where it's different. So I say get you a catchphrase second or third, but first thing, just put your head down and work.
No, I think that's really well said. We also played a clip a little earlier, Lawson Luckie. Tight ends want their catches. They don't want to be just extra blockers. But Luckie yesterday, when he was meeting with the media, said the thing about the Georgia offense he's most looking forward to seeing is how this team runs the ball. And that's the kind of thing that Georgia players seem to say a lot. How much does that unselfishness, even if it's just a few small words, it seems to permeate this locker room? How much does that become contagious for a team like Georgia? And how much is, if that is the prevailing mood and the feeling within the locker room, how much does the team benefit from that?
They benefit, a lot. I remember when Coach Shear first, got there, and he had came from Bama. So he was kind of the first, he was that first, coach to come in and just lay that Bama foundation, him and Pruitt, and he said, when I turn on the film, I see a lot of guys trying to make plays for themselves and not playing as a unit. He was talking about, the Georgia defense uh, really at that time. And that message just goes further with how, in this day and age, Coach Smart has already said, we're not going to be a pay to play, program. He still wants guys that believe in coaching, family, and culture. And what I learned through Coach Smart my senior year was everyone wants to be associated with the winner. And all you guys are so worried about your brand or how you're playing, when if you just win, everyone's going to want to be, around you. So with it being almost like year 8 or 9 for Coach Smart, that culture is already driven into those guys. The recruits know if I want the biggest bag, don't go to Georgia. But if I want to go to a team that has culture and I'm going to be coached, then go to Georgia. So it just translates to win because those guys truly know that if we win, then everyone else wins. So that's just a culture that's been set at Georgia.
Yeah, I think that's great. To finish with this, so we've been talking a lot about, man, I think that Jordan needs to get off to a fast start against Marshall on Saturday. We think offense when we say that. Coach Smart last night says that some of this is on the defense too, that getting off to a good start requires both sides of the ball. And that's 100% right, that if you want 2 full first quarter possessions with the new clock rules, you better get the other side off the field pretty quick in order to be able to do that. So as a defensive guy, we know what fast start looks like on offense. There's play script, there's game plan.
Right.
We kind of have a picture in our mind of what that is. But for the defense, what is the defensive mindset about, getting that opposing offense off the field as quickly as possible when it touches it for the first time?
This Georgia defense has so much unknown. I mean, you got so many guys that are year 2, year 3 guys, but this is their first time playing meaningful football. So getting off to a fast start is not only important to the whole team, but important to those guys, confidence. We lost a lot of pass rushers. We lost a lot of depth, on the D line. So to come out and get a 3 and out, meaning we stuffed the run on first down, we forced them to a second and long. We forced an incomplete pass, and then we got third and long. And now we want to see who's going to be that next DSPR, that next designated pass rusher to get us off the field. So it's very important. The crowd gets involved on the very first third down. I remember red shirting or, when I wasn't playing and I would just hear on that first drive how loud the crowd was on third down. And when Leonard Floyd or Jordan Jenkins went and got a sack, how the crowd just erupted like we just scored a touchdown. That first third down is so important to the momentum of the first half, especially the first quarter. So just coming out, getting a 3 and out, force them to a third and long, and rushing the passer with some of those new guys we got, back there could definitely be, a recipe for success.
So I want to keeping you long, and I'm sorry, but I want to make
No,
a
you're
point
good. Yep.
about what you're saying. As a fan, it's my favorite thing about being in the stadium. When it's third down, crowd starts getting loud, and then Georgia gets a sack.
Oh, man.
Then it gets even louder. Like, I get chills thinking about that. And I'll tell you my favorite version of that was in 2022 when they sent Javon Bullard on a blitz. And I think that was actually fourth down. When, Hooker's trying to survey the situation and the crowd gets loud, then it gets louder, then it gets louder again, then the ball gets snapped. Here comes Bullard, just pow, just absolutely, annihilates him. And then the crowd then gets even louder than that.
Right.
Just watching it build and build and build and build and then, build even more. That's my favorite thing about being in Sanford Stadium. I just love that. And I can only imagine what it must feel like to be the recipient of those kinds of cheers.
Man, it's just, man, it's really crazy. The best moment for me was the year, I redshirted and we're playing, we're playing, I think we're playing LSU.
Okay.
And It was the fourth quarter, and we needed to
Yeah.
stop so bad.
Yeah, I
They were
remember that game.
driving, and it was third down, and it got so loud. It was a night game, and I seen Leonard Floyd leaning down, just itching to go rush. And when he went and got that sack, how the crowd just went crazy. The first thing that went to my head was, I cannot wait to make 96,000 people have that reaction.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think as a football player, I don't play running back, so I don't score, touchdowns. So I never know what it feels like to get in the end zone. But just it's a gladiator thing to know
Yeah.
that me punishing this man, I can control the emotions of 96,000. Not only at home, but let's talk about the road.
Oh, yeah.
When you can shut up 96,000 by plummeting a man right into the ground. It's the best sport. I mean, it's the best feeling in sports.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
can't wait, to be around it.
That's awesome, Davin. I love it. Great stuff. Thank you for your time today. Hope to see Georgia making a lot of fans cheer on Saturday and then shutting these Tennessee folks up, just like you just said, coming up in a couple of weeks. Can't wait to talk to you about it. Thanks for your time. We'll see you very soon here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Breda Pest Management.
Always, Brandon. Go Dogs, baby.
Go Dogs, indeed. Yeah, you love that. That gets you ready for the season. That's good stuff from Davin Bellamy right there. How about a couple of golden shoes before we get out of here today? First of all, incredible hospitality. Thank you yesterday to our friends at Cercheros that took great care of us, gave us a great place to be for our show yesterday, and we'll give a golden shoe out to them as captured by our guy Cody Chafin saying, hanging with DawgNation Daily live here, Cercheros in Alpharetta. What a great time that was. Had a chance to meet one of our great DawgNation commenters, DT. His daughter stopped by yesterday. Had a chance to meet her. That was really fun. So golden shoes all around to the folks from Cercheros yesterday. That was terrific. So golden shoe there. And another golden shoe going out to Austin here, who writes in Austin 11. He says, this season isn't a schedule, it's a journey. DawgNation Daily in Georgia versus everybody. The road ahead. It's a beautiful rendition of a graphic here, walking through this crowd of dangerous rivals. UGA ready to tear them all down. DawgNation Daily ready to do the same thing. Bama, Tech, Auburn, Florida, everybody in between. Whoever's standing in the way, you can't be first, but you can be next. And that road going to be traveled here a lot this season. So good stuff from Austin on that. We'll give him a golden shoe. Lousy stinking Gators, they're on that list. They've been on it for a long time, about 1,754 days. That's how long it's been since Florida's beaten Georgia. That is our Gator Hater Updater. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. DawgNation Daily, presented by Breda Pest Management. And on video, time now for the R.S. Andrews cool down. R.S. Andrews, when you turn to for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. They show up on time. They do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. You can trust them on all of that today. All right, let me do a couple of things here just for a moment. So on Saturday for our DawgNation postgame show, this is just total. So every now and then I kind of create a nice veneer of a story to go along with whatever the real story is. In this particular case, I'm just going to give you the real. On Saturday, we're going to do something for the very first time. Something I'm really excited about. We are going to add a new way for you to contact us for our postgame show. And ironically, it's the oldest way. We are going to now add phone calls to our postgame show. It has always been my goal to make our DawgNation postgame show the place for postgame reaction. And honestly, we've succeeded in that pretty well. I don't want it to be just me yammering on. I want it to be the feelings of all of DawgNation. And as I said before, through our Zoom calls and the things we've been able to do, that has been a really successful thing. One of the things that I've been really proud of over the course of the last few years is the growth of our postgame show. Because the truth is, DawgNation Daily has been big for a long time. The postgame show has gotten far bigger over the course of the years. It's just something that has grown a lot, and I'm very proud of that. But I want it to keep growing. But I also want the feel of the show to continue to grow. And I like the old school, like when I was a kid, when the game was over, you picked up the phone, or someone did, and you listened to people just letting it rip. This is what I like. This is what I didn't like. That's what you want the post-game show to be. And we've done a pretty good job of creating that. We have live commenters that are at the bookstore for our home games, the Zoom stuff, and we are going to have traditional phone calls too. Now, you may say, well, why am I telling you all of this? Well, for a couple of reasons. A, I'm excited about it. But B, anytime you do a new thing, technological undertaking, if you want to call it that, you got to make sure it works okay. So we were today, as a test for this, we were going to do some call-ins here during our R.S. Andrews cool-down. Once again, total confession. I can't really do that today and do it as well as I want to because I've got meetings. I won't bore you with all the stuff, but every now and then I have to do, something other than just talking to this microphone. Today is one of those days. I have a meeting I have to attend, so I can't really do that. But I do, if we can, hopefully I don't know what our folks are going to say behind the wall here, but if we can do this tomorrow, I'd like to. I don't know if there's logistically a reason we can't do it tomorrow, but if we can do it tomorrow, I'd like to. And I'll also tell you this. If you're willing to participate, and if y'all will behave yourselves and not act like a bunch of knuckleheads, there's a chance we may also start doing this on a regular basis for our R.S. Andrews cool down. But like your parents sometimes would tell you, a lot of that depends on how y'all act. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes, we will. The people behind the glass approve tomorrow.
Okay, good.
And if everybody behaves, and we made another test on it, we'd do it Friday. And then we'll see what happens after that. You
get one chance to do this right. Hey, the serious thing is we need your help for Saturday to see if this works. We feeling okay about doing all this because we don't want to do live game reps the first time. But if y'all, if you take care of yourself, we may do this more frequently. All right, so that's that. Now, a few calls here just for a minute, and then we'll do a big one tomorrow. Christy laughing at me, which I deserve. Chris on the subject of potentially going undefeated. Yeah, I'll admit, I'm as optimistic about Georgia as anyone could be, I think. But I also must admit that I don't really view being undefeated as a realistic possibility for Georgia or any team. I think the days of college football having an undefeated national champion are just over. I do. In fact, we saw this a year ago with the one undefeated team that goes to the college football playoff. Well, they got bumped out of there as quickly as they could. So we may see undefeated teams in the regular season, but those are going to be teams that I'm lining up to take the other side on in the playoff oftentimes. Chris says, what's a phone call? Yeah, we're going to reintroduce the oldest technology of them all, but I would say that for sports talk, phone calls can still work. This may be the only phone call you make all week. And we'll still put the Zoom link up because some people would just rather have the Zoom. We may do Zoom without camera to make it a little cleaner for people. But I would say that for sports talk, traditional phone calls can still be good. RKD is going to call in. Good. That's good to hear. Delmar Lane Reloaded says traditional phone calls, the audacity. Yeah, there you go. See, that's what it's going to look like. Nice little graphic on the phone. I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited about this because to me, that's how the post game works better. I want it to be a free-for-all of opinions. I really do. And we've achieved that, I think, but I think there's a way to make it even more frantic. UJ Marine says BA is going to turn into Feinbaum. Let me tell you something. I've seen Feinbaum's house. If I could turn into Feinbaum, I think I probably would. DT says the BA doesn't trust us. We probably earn that, especially the YouTube crowd. Yeah, you're right, DT. It is the YouTube folks I'd be the most worried about. Let's see what else. Bill Camacho talking about the long winning streak that Georgia has. Saw an interesting stat the other day. Who had this? Who had this? Y'all help me out. I'll give credit. The Georgia is the only team in college football not to lose a game at home in the 2020s. Is that wild? That's wild, right? That's really wild. The only team, like I said, somebody had this. I'll give credit to whoever it is, no matter who it is. We mentioned 3 Georgia reporters already on the show today. So whoever had that, I'll give credit, but whoever had it first, I mean, the only team apparently in college football not to lose in the 2020s at home. What else? Senior Dawg 54 says he ran into a couple Penn State fans. He thinks they think it's going to be their year. Yeah, they definitely do. And I mean, they've certainly spent big to keep guys in their roster, bring in a couple of transfers. They steal the Ohio State defensive coordinator. But, this is still a program ready to win its first big game. And until I see that, I mean, by comparison, when Ohio State broke through in the Ryan Day era for the first time a year ago, I don't put Ohio State and Penn State in the same category because Ohio State had been losing to Michigan. They lost some playoff games, but they're beating teams like Penn State with regularity. They're winning some big games. By comparison, Penn State doesn't really win those types of games at all. Let me go to Facebook for a moment. And this will be a little shorter cool down today, y'all, because like I said, I've got to do a meeting here in a minute, but we'll do longer in a moment. So I guess we've got reporting coming in. Apparently the word here is that Joenel Aguero, well-placed sources apparently, he's fine, ready to play. And as I said before, I hope that's true. The point of the Aguero thing is that I think I speak on behalf of all Georgia fans, and I'm not necessarily mad about it. I'm just reflecting an opinion that exists. Georgia fans, when you tell me a guy is, we think he's fine, we're hopeful to get him back, in my mind, I'm assuming you're sawing his leg off because the practical reality has turned out to be that way far more often than not. And I'm not even saying that Kirby necessarily owes me anything on this. I'm really not mad about it. I'm just pointing out that approximately 1,000 injuries in a row have turned out to be more serious than they were portrayed to be. At a certain point, don't kid a kidder. That's all I'm saying. And I hear this it's one of the most common things I hear from Georgia fans of why are we hearing that so-and-so's fine, but so-and-so is not playing. It's just a thing that fans feel like they notice. I'm not mad about it. A certain level of gamesmanship is probably appropriate. But this idea of, we think so-and-so is fine. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. And maybe he is. And if he is, then, as I told you, I have strong opinions loosely held. If this one turns out to be the one that really is fine, then good. This would be a good one for that to be true for. This would be a good one for that to be true for. But we shall see. Sometimes I just am more cynical than I want to be. It's not an attractive quality necessarily. It's just real. And that's the deal. Logan Eccles says, who do I call or how do I call? So do we have the phone number? No call now because operators are not standing by. But for tomorrow, do we have the phone number? Maybe we'll get that.
Yeah, we got a fancy phone number.
Yeah, we have a good. This is what I'm so proud of. This is the kind of thing that makes me feel like we're a real show. So, Jay, can they hear you give out the phone number?
Yes. So it'll be 678-645-DAWG. 678-645-3294.
So we got a vanity phone number, y'all. That's how you know this is a real show. This thing was in my not basement. I didn't have a basement. It was in my closet at one point in time, and I was speaking to the wall with a mattress cover stapled to the drywall. Now we have a vanity phone number. We are 678-645-DAWG, which is obviously spelled the way it's supposed to be, DAWG. And for those of you that have never made a phone call before, letters correspond with numbers. And it used to be that you'd have vanity word and you'd just dial DAWG. But if you do that with your phone now, it still works that way. So if you look on your Apple here, the 2 is ABC, the 3 is DEF. So 3294, coincides with DAWG. So 678-645-DAWG. This is a real thing that's happening. Tomorrow you can do that. By the way, Chef Jay Bowen ate at Cracker Barrel yesterday since the whole sign change. I noticed that they were only so I'll give you my entire – actually, I'm not going to give you my entire Cracker Barrel opinion. I'm not giving you the full thing, but I'm going to give you the partial thing here for a moment. The issue with certain restaurants is they are very service dependent. They just are. And that's the biggest issue here is that when it comes to pancakes and eggs and stuff like that, it only tastes good if it's brought right to you right after it's cooked. Same thing at home. If you're eating the breakfast at home, that's one of the reasons why the one meal I very infrequently eat at a restaurant is breakfast, because breakfast to me only tastes good right off the griddle. It's got to be right off the griddle. Cooked, served, you eat it. The whole process is a very fast thing. And, that requires a heavy dependence on service, and that's not always easy to do in this day and age. So the biggest issue with any restaurant that may have been in the news as of late is going to be that. It's one of the things that Waffle House kind of has going for it, is that, once again, neither of these companies are going to sponsor with us anytime soon. It's one of the things that Waffle House doesn't do really any advertising, is they cook it and they turn around, they hand it to you. That's honestly, of all the things that Waffle House has going on, this is one of the biggest keys to the Waffle House success, is they cook it quickly, they give it to you right away, and in almost every situation, 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 p.m., anything in between, you're eating it hot and fresh, prepared just like that. It's a huge difference, I would say. Huge difference. The one, I guess slightly, just notice, and I've said this to you before, nothing that's mostly liked by rural Southerners is allowed to exist. Just notice that. Just notice it. I'm not going to explain myself any further. I'm not going to try to tell you what I think it means. Just notice it. Let's see what else. Spencer Clark. Yeah, I would say that is the one thing I'm not always quite so sure about. I'm more of a hash browns guy. All right, we got to get ready to go. G. Gray says he prefers waffles over pancakes. So my theory on this is that great pancakes are awesome. Mediocre pancakes are really not worth eating, because who wants to get diabetes for eating food that's not very good? And, kind of coldish, been cooked for a while, pancakes are just not very good. I would say that waffles are great when they're freshly made, but the average waffle, the one that's been sitting there for a couple of minutes, still tastes better than the average pancake. So I have grown to probably like waffles better than pancakes for the simple reason that an average waffle tastes better than the average pancake does. That is something I've grown to believe. All right, let me do a couple more Facebooks. For some reason, my comments are showing up weird today. I don't know why I'm not getting Facebook comments. Sorry, y'all. Facebook is just a weird platform sometimes. I apologize for that. All right. Austin 11, by the way, won our golden shoe today, also said he thinks that waffles are superior to pancakes. All right, we have got to get ready to go for now. Thanks for being here. Y'all check out R.S. Andrews online, rsandrews.com, air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric. By the way, don't forget our R.S. Andrews Cool Down returns on Friday. We love having fun with that. That'll be ready for you. We're actually recording it today. We'll have it for you on Friday. That'll be a lot of fun. And if you have a plumbing emergency, don't forget our friends at R.S. Andrews can handle that for you right away, too. The RS, after all, stands for rapid service. So if your water heater goes out, in many cases, RS Andrews can replace it for you the same day. Just make sure you find them online at rsandrews.com. All right, tomorrow for the cool down, we'll take your calls. We'll do a big cool down in celebration of the upcoming season, and we'll let you guys help us out with our technologies to make sure we feel pretty good about it all. So that is up and coming. Of course, we'll see you there for that, for the RS Andrews Cool Down, and back as well for DawgNation Daily, presented by Breda Pest Management. We'll look forward to talking to you then.